All right, let's get started. I'll introduce myself. My name is Marissa McKenzie. I am a board certified behavior analyst, and you'll often hear that referred to on our podcast as BCBA. I have my good friend here, Bebe.
Hello, I'm Bebe, and I am also a BCBA.
Yes. How long have you been a BCBA?
I've been BCBA for about almost 2 years now.
Okay.
So getting used to
we're out of the year year mentorship.
Right.
Okay, so welcome to our podcast. Thank you. I think it is great to start off with first, like, what is this podcast for?
Yeah.
Why do we want to do a podcast?
I feel like it's good to kind of like let people listen in on what our experiences are about, and also like sharing our journey.
Yes.
our experience, what get us into the field, and like what we're passionate about. I think that's good to share. So as of now, I'm obviously the guest, but I would love to hear, from you, and like I would like to share my own experience as well.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing for me is building a community. That's what I want, right? So also that doesn't just include like, so you'll also hear ABA referred to a lot. So that stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. It's the foundation of, the principles we incorporate when we're working. Oftentimes, Bebe and I work in the field of working with children with autism. But there are, bigger things, sports psychology, a lot of BCBAs are getting into that. They're just going into different realms. Nutrition is also another one that's kind of up and rising. So you might oftentimes hear BCBAs working with children with autism, and adults as well. But in general, that's kind of the main population. But overall, I want to create a community. So we oftentimes collaborate. That's a big piece of our job too, which sometimes it's beautiful, but it can also be challenging to kind of manage all of the moving pieces. So speech therapy, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, teachers, other educators, anything to add. Parents, right? Parents are a key piece. Family members.
That's right. Or even school aides, or like anyone that is supporting family into reaching the goals and reaching what kind of tools there is to use in our daily lives. And things.
Yes. Yeah. And behavior is everywhere. That's really the biggest thing we focus on, behavior, whether that be behavior of ourselves, right? That's self-monitoring. So behavior change is a big focus of what we do. So just looking at what we want to build this podcast to, it is creating a community of like-minded individuals, people interested, and also providing some education. So in the future, we will be providing continued education units, which is basically, for BCBAs, we need to have a certain amount of CEs for recertification. So we will be including that in later shows. But first of all, I just want to start off with myself. I will be the host, and I'm super excited. I'll bring my colleagues on, like Bebe, and other professions as well. I hope to reach out to a larger population as well. But I want to kind of get into how I stumbled upon ABA, being a BCBA. Bebe was a part of my journey as well, so we'll kind of get into that as we morph into that a little bit later. But originally, I started out as in social work, so I graduated with my bachelor's, and I worked in group homes. I worked in juvenile facilities in North Dakota as well. So that's where I graduated. Shout out NDSU Bison.
Well, it's such a long distance.
Yeah. I started out for 3 years, and I came back home to California. So I did that for 3 years, wraparound programs for children with on probation, or youth on probation, adoption, foster care youth, and after a while, it got a little bit burnt out. Which I feel like in any field, right? And we'll talk about burnout in other episodes too, and some of the questions we have for later as well. But burnout is just super relevant. So I felt super burnt out. I was kind of looking at, what I wanted to do with my life after, getting my bachelor's. And I didn't think that I wanted to do social work. So a friend had mentioned a classroom, an autism classroom, at a school district, and
I feel like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it was intimidating, right? Like I had worked with a population of, I was around a lot of like generational trauma and working with youth there. But it was kind of intimidating just to go into kind of a different realm, right? I didn't really know like
it's
developmental, developmental delays, what that looked like. I wasn't sure. So I got into the school and I started kind of working as like an aide.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience. I'm like, okay, I really like this. Let me, look at like in-home therapy. And I got a little bit better training as a behavior technician. And and then kind of the years went by and I started connecting with other people and they were going into their masters for, in psychology with the specialization in ABA. I kind of worked up the ranks and I started with one company and I actually supervised.
Then we met. That's right.
Ta-da! The insert sound, But yeah, and then that's where I met Bebe, and Bebe was a behavior tech when I was an assistant manager, and it was really cool. You interact so many times.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like, I felt like I've learned so much. I mean, this is basically like a segue into like how I started in the field, because I feel like Marissa's and my experience are it's different, but it's kind of aligned in some way. I mean, I've always been in this area for the longest time, but I started my career in psychology at San Jose State, and I started to look for jobs that are basically in psychology. I talked to my classmates, I talked to my friends, and one thing that I have heard about is ABA, and I was curious. I had background volunteering at a local community, and so I was like, okay, working with kids isn't so bad. So right, and so I started to jump into working in ABA, and that's my first private in-home job, and that's where I met Marissa in 2016.
Wow.
Which was awesome. Like, we worked together in a few cases, and we talk a lot, collaborate, right? Like, which is the key word that we probably previously mentioned. I knew so much from this job, and then eventually, as I was graduating my undergraduate courses, I was thinking like, okay, maybe I need to pursue a career in this path. Like,
because I think you had left the agency first, so you had just graduated, you were going to move, and I remember talking to you, and you were still unsure. So that's why when we reunited, like now within the last year, right? It was kind of like, wow, Bebe's a BCBA, yay!
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, like I was talking to everyone around me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know psychology was what I graduated with, but at the same time, psychology is such a big field. Like, I have no idea, like, what it is to narrow down and then actually have like my life to pursue with, right? But then I kind of come up with what I like in that sense too. So then when I find that I like this job, this first job in psychology that I started, right, I tried, I started to ask people like, okay, so what's next? Like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And so I got into a graduate school and then pursuing a career in becoming a board certified behavior analyst. I mean, obviously, I was working in home first, and then I moved towards school, which is like slightly different from you.
Yeah.
But the funny story was that like it was the same school that Marissa used to go to, which was
for your master.
For your master, for the master, and also like my work experience as well. I was working in the same school setting, which was awesome. Like people were like, "Oh wow, Marissa was awesome." And I used to work with her. So things like that. So like the field is, in the area is quite small, but we're still able to kind of like extract what we have in the environment and then make it our own experience, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so I did the school setting. And then I got my BCBAs, and then now I come to this wonderful company, and then we finally reunite again. I met Marissa again. Yes.
And so what was it like working in different settings, right? From home to school and that kind of switch. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people schedule-wise, they like school because it gives you a little bit more consistency. Where you have that like 8 to 4 or.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, personally, there's like best of both worlds. I think like there's two different things. But for me, when I was in school, the things that are different is that the school has a set schedule and the kids only see you in one setting, which is school, right? In the private and home, like you're able to like go to the park with them, go to go to centers with them, and like actually having more controls of like the environment, and also like being able to see parents more when you're working
working with the families. That's a big like in their natural setting, right?
That's
you have
right.
that's it. That was a big thing of like making
That's
sure I
right.
switched over to home or some into that setting, because that's the setting that they're
That's right.
in, for a lot of time, and the people and the natural supports that they're with.
Exactly. And so I feel like there's more like the community piece now that I'm here in like the in-home setting. The school was nice, but I think there's like the skills that is required in school, right? Like that, like sitting down, working, and like doing table work, doing community setting, which is kind of what I'm, I guess, like further away from, but then now I'm kind of coming in home and then being able to collaborate with parents, collaborate with SLP, collaborate with OT, and even my colleagues, my fellow colleagues, BCBAs, like I'm getting a lot of collaborations, which is phenomenal. I've learned a lot from there.
Well, let's talk about, so you just passed your test, like 2 years ago, which is, I've only passed mine 4, right? But still, there's been a lot of changes.
That's right.
Like we're under overhead, a board, and so it's called BACB. So there have been changes. So even looking at like, what was your supervision experience like, or do you feel like you were prepared when you did graduate from your master's to become a BCBA and everything that it kind of entails?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like I wasn't as prepared as I thought I would be. Definitely, like I was thinking when I was like sitting for the test, I was thinking like, hey, the BCBA is basically like the end result, right? Which is definitely not like not it. That's not it.
Yeah.
After becoming a BCBA, I've learned that was just the beginning.
Yeah.
I've learned so much more, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Snap fingers at that. Like, I've learned so much more to become a BCBA or become who I am now, to support families and support the communities as much as I can. I know that, like, people are thinking like, oh wow, studying for the BCBA, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, that's like, you're working just to get that. And honestly, we could talk about too, I mean, the turnover rates for, so Bebe and I work for a 2-tier company, which it's a newer developing model. It's definitely something different where we as BCBAs are providing direct therapy. So, coming from agencies where it's typically traditional to have a 3-tier. So it would be an RBT, or registered behavior technician. Or sometimes just a behavior technician,
right?
A master's level student, which would be like an assistant manager, program manager, and then you have the BCBA, who's creating the treatment plans, conducting the assessments, generally working more with the families and kind of just tying the pieces together, overlapping support, providing trainings to behavior technicians. So in that 3-tier, it's very, very common to have a high turnover. Why? And we look at those issues of like, okay, our RBTs getting paid what they deserve, our BCBAs holding caseloads that are manageable for us, right? So we kind of get into that a little bit of just like kind of seeing like, why is the turnover so high and things like that. But yeah, coming from being an RBT and then studying for you, right? So a lot of that, I think my point being, is the financial piece.
That's right.
Right? You love what you do on a day-to-day. You're the behavior tech. You're the RBT. You're most involved with the kid, right? You might be providing up anywhere from like, right, maybe 3 hours, 6 hours a week to up to 20 hours a week with one kid.
Exactly.
Right? So you're very familiar with the family and the kiddo, and that hustle of like, oh, BCBA is the end, is a lot of it, I feel like, is also to the financial. I love what I do, but I'm not getting paid enough. So I know that I need to go to school. I need to study for the test. I need to pass the exam. And then boom, you're in this huge, like you said, it's kind of the beginning.
Right.
So kind of just tying that in of like that motivation to become a BCBA is you love what you do, or you enjoy the field, but then you're like sprung into this thing where like, oh, whoa, this is a lot.
That's right. Like, I mean, I totally agree with what we were just mentioning, and I think like financial is a part of it, right? It's that like, when I decided to leave my first job, a part of it was that it was the financial piece, was that like I was no longer in school. I wasn't, it has to make an income somewhere, and like at that time it was difficult, and so I started to look for a new experience. And then fair enough, like when I moved to the school setting and I kind of reorganized myself, I find that, you know, like I have to keep going in order to kind of like become or like having the ability to do what I actually wanted to do, which is, you know, kind of like reaching in and like, okay, being able to state my statement and having that
make an impact,
credible, exactly, and being able to like have that push, right? Because I know a lot of time like people might think that, oh yeah, like it's nice to have like behavior tech and all that stuff, but at the same time it's a bit tough, like, you know, when you were like at the very you know, like at the very bottom.
Yeah. I mean, at the very bottom, but super impactful, right? RBTs, behavior techs. So that's why, like, it's important for them to get paid what they deserve, because they put a lot of work in. And I think that trickles down, though, into how impactful you are as a team, whether you're 3-tier, 2-tier, a contracted BCBA and in-school BCBA, right, where you kind of don't have those tiers necessarily.
Yeah.
But you're still talking about the quality of service, you know? So an RBT can only be as strong as their supervisor, right? Is their training high quality? Are we making the impact that we want to see? And I think in general, if you're in this field, in human services in general, social work, you know, psychology, whatever it might be, right? You're going to want to make sure you're making that impact and actually having that. And for us, we look at data. That's what, that was a big thing, moving from social work to you know, not to say that, you know, some aspects of social work don't have data to rely on, but the biggest piece is like you're literally tracking behaviors as they're occurring. You're looking at skills, you're building skills. So yeah, I think that's a big piece too, is like training for the RBTs, preparation. Like they can still make a wonderful impact and they're so involved, but you know, there's also that piece of the supervisor, the BCBA has to have that impact too. Yeah,
I think for me, like what also shaped my visions and goals to keep going is that I always had supporting supervisors. I mean, even from my old company, like I get a lot of support that shows me the way of like where, you know, like, what would be a good direction, and like, you know, what's your potential looks like. And I think that was helpful. That was really helpful. Like I think, and that's something that I strive to be. I want to do that from my supervisee as well, like seeing them grow. Because I know like this is just, again, like I said in the beginning, right? Like it's like that's just the start. You don't always stop at like, okay, you get your BCBAs and then you graduate, you know, good, right? But at the same time, I feel like you continuously learning. You don't stop researching. You don't stop like trying to just, you know, it's not just a job at this point. It's more of like what you grow your passion into. And that's something that I like about this job is that you're just, you can walk sometimes, you can run sometimes, right? But there's like people who collaborate and who's supporting you along the way, and that was awesome. Yeah,
that is a crucial piece of
that's
like, making sure that you have the support. So here's a good question for first year BCBAs. What is one piece of advice you would give to first year BCBAs? So they cannot yet supervise. Or, you know, provide supervision to...
Good piece of advice. Don't stop learning. I feel like that's exactly what I've been saying, right? Like, don't stop learning. Like, sometimes people get marinated into the success that we're like, I am successful now and I'm done, right? And I'm like, no, you have to keep learning. All the CEUs, like, even though they're not, sometimes they're long, but keep learning. Like, do your own research and ask people, collaborate. Talk to your colleagues, right? Talk to the people who are, you know, like who are collaborating with you on the case and things like that. And that's always helpful. Like sometimes you will learn that it's not just the book that shows you, but also like the experience of people, right?
Ooh, the book. Tell us what that book is.
Cooper. Cooper. There's a lot of like books and ABAs, obviously. Like I feel like people who are in the field will hear a lot of like Cooper book, or what's the other one? Verbal behavior, or I don't know. Do you have another one? Like, I can't think
just
of
in general.
Spots. But there's like, you know, there's quite a few books that we can look at, or like even Googling sometimes help, like seeing perspectives. a lot of time, like I have people, like I talk to my supervisors about this sometimes. Is that okay? Like, what are some reciprocal point, right? Like, what are something that we can kind of put ourselves into parents' shoes and feel like what they're struggling on is crucial in like our collaboration and things like that. So I talk a lot about digging deeper into the context rather than just knowing the surface and move on, because I think that's a big part of our job.
Being curious. I love that. Keep on learning. That's, I mean, we're still doing that, right? It doesn't, and I mention years only just to give the audience a perspective, but it really doesn't matter how many years I've had it. It doesn't matter that if I took the test the first time and passed, right? Because at the end of the day, there's so much that you're into when you're in this field, right? So like you mentioned too, like SLPs, OTs, and really looking at, so one experience I had was traveling abroad with the Global Autism Project. That was a huge wake-up call, not just for the beautiful experience in general, right? We got to kind of collaborate, to emphasize sustainability. But I didn't really understand it until you go on site and you realize, like, oh, I'm not conducting therapy. They were pretty brief on, like, what we're doing there, right? So I knew the experience I had, but I was, just excited to take advantage. So we met in New York, got to their headquarters for 2 days, kind of got the general gist of what was going on, where we were going, what the mission for them was. And then we went off. So my country was that I went to was Nicaragua. And so it was really cool. We, and you're literally volunteering for like a 9 to 5. I wasn't prepared for that, but they have a beautiful center. At that time, this was in 2017, I think. They only had one BCBA in the country, and she was from Florida. So she was really just like found from the ground up building the center, and you would have kids traveling from like 2 hours away in more rural areas of Nicaragua. So point being of like, when we got there, we realized we weren't doing therapy. We were watching their staff do the therapy and talking together, providing trainings to them about how to manage their staff in ways, that were manageable for them. So that sustainability really hit me of like, wow, what I was doing I was an assistant manager at that time. And what I was doing, I never really thought of sustainability as that, right? It's just like, and we always say it now, especially you might hear this saying of like, BCBAs or, just RBTs or whomever. We want to work ourselves out of a job. But what does that actually mean? How do you get there? So the meat and bone, the meat and potatoes of all of that is in the middle. How do you get there? And and so even as a BCBA now, learning that has been crazy. You learn from other people as an assistant manager, RBT, and in different settings that you're in. You learn it from each family that you're with. But to actually how to promote sustainability has been something that's been eye-opening for me, but also kind of at the focal point, right? Am I creating prompt dependency? Nice. Yeah. Oh wow, she's on it. Am I creating that dependency where it's almost debilitating for families, right? Because we get our families that we work with are great, right? They have so much on their plate and they're just wanting the help. Wanting the training to know like how to bond, how to help their kiddos gain the skills they need, reduce, maladaptive behaviors, aggression, self-injurious behaviors. But so we see now, how do we move in a way that promotes the family to do it on their own? Yeah. And training other people is also hard for that. As you're navigating and you're learning. It's like training, program managers or master's level students who are still becoming their own clinician. Like that's been kind of a in-depth piece that I always try to keep at the forefront. Yeah. And I mean, to add on to that too, I feel like I was also like kind of taught into this is that like there's another term of like adaptability. I think it goes co-signs with sustainability, right, of like our intervention and how we're come about with like what makes this plan of us like becoming a tool for the rest of whenever they need it to, right? So I think that's an awesome way to view it, is that we don't just want to come in and like point fingers and done, but I think this is more of what do you want to see happening in the future, and how can we help you, because it's not just like I don't have the answers, right, and or sometimes maybe they're resistant to think that we do, or they are almost overly trusting that we do. And it's like, hey, let's navigate this together. Right? Sometimes it is trial and error. And I think that when you come off of working so hard to become a BCBA, there are some stylistically, there's some that might say, oh, I have the answers. Right. You know, so like that's why I love your message of don't stop learning. You know, and so that doesn't just mean from books or from articles or different resources. Now we have podcasts too, right? But also just other colleagues. So don't stop there, right? It's also a piece of like, don't ever be too prideful to say like, you don't have the answer. Let's navigate that together, because you have the foundation, you have the principles you need to do what you need to do. And each kiddo is so different, right? We're talking about kiddos because that's relevant for us. But like we mentioned, ABA can be in, you know, various different fields. But at the end of the day, behavior change is the focus, whether that be in, you know, quote unquote neurotypical individuals, or not, right?
That's right.
It's just kind of seeing like, how does behavior impact us? How can we shift or change behavior in a way that is more advantageous for the person of the behavior we're looking to change first and foremost, and then their environment.
Exactly. Love that. That's so beautiful to say. I love it.
Thank you. But yeah, let's kind of transition into what has been the most eye-opening experience?
To be in parents' shoes. Like, I was trying to think of the word, right? Like, right now it's the parents' shoe because I work mainly with parents. But anyone who's like haven't had much of training, or like may have had some training but not in like the training that we got, right? So like I was able to kind of like have that perspective taking, and then I think that was extremely eye-opening, because what you might think you learn from the book and apply as that, like, you're just
like each individual, each family dynamic.
That's right. Yeah, it's just not, you know, like, it's not always applicable, right? Sometimes you kind of have to like go lighter. Sometimes you might have to push a little bit more. There's always like, going back to that term that I stated previously, right? It's like adaptability. Like, you kind of have to be with the flow, and like,
it's a dance.
Right, exactly.
It's a tango.
I love that. Yeah, so that was really eye-opening to me. And again, like being I still think I'm brand new, like within even
same.
like being,
same.
Right?
I still feel like
like being 2 years in the field. I'm as a BCBA at least, like I'm still like learning all the time, and I feel like that's the powerful skills that you have to have, right? You kind of have to always take like perspective taking, being able to adapt, being able to work with what we have.
Yeah. And allowing the families to also have like their ideas, their not just their perspectives, but okay, great, how do we incorporate that? What are your priorities, and where are we going to go with that? You know, and refocusing, right? Creating a plan. Sometimes we are the facilitators in that way of just like, oh, great, you bring the ideas, I assist you in, you know, where we're going to go with it, how we're going to approach it. So that is a big piece of it too.
That's right.
So how about most challenging?
Whoa.
BCBA.
I mean, I used to think that, this is previously from like getting a BCBA, but I feel like I used to think that training people who has like a set focus on like a goal, or a set focus on how a goal should look like, is hard, because they already have something like set in stone for themselves, right? But then as the time goes on, as I'm becoming a BCBA, I feel like some things that could be challenging is actually like to keep up. It's kind of like keeping up with the knowledge that I'm taking in, because it is a lot of new knowledge out there. Continuously learning, but like at your own pace too, right? Like that's something that I have to add now that I'm like kind of 2 years into to being a BCBA. Kind of have to like, you know, at your own pace, and actually like learning how to communicate with other people.
Learning what's sustainable for you.
Exactly.
Right? Because you're not just a BCBA.
Yes.
Right?
100%
You're
help me
a
out.
person. You're a person, you know?
That's
so
right.
that's another focus, and is a good transition for the next question. But sorry, I'll let you finish. But
that's about it, right? Like, it's like what is coming our way, and also like kind of chopping it up a little bit so that we can digest a little slower or faster as we need it to.
Digest slower. Say it louder for people in the back. Okay? No, because it does take, for me, I'm a processor. So it does take me a little while to like, okay, how am I going to approach that?
That's right.
Excuse me. But yeah. And taking that in and processing it slower, figuring out where we want to go. Sometimes also there's a thing of like, I have to have the answers.
Right.
1, 2, 3, go. And it's not like that.
Yeah.
You know, it shouldn't be like that. You know?
Exactly. So I learned that along the way, as I'm like gaining more experience as a supervisor, to like kind of, okay, like this is the pace that parents can do. This is the pace that I can do. Let's meet in the middle and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being okay to like not have the answers immediately.
Right.
So great. I love this transition. Who are you off the clock?
Oh, I am a foodie.
Ooh, yes.
I am a foodie off the clock. Like, you can probably see, like, I love going out to eat. I love cooking my own food. Like, there's, like, you know, just experiencing all this food in this area. Like, I mean, and by this area, I meant, like, San Francisco Bay Area. But, like, you know, just, like, going out to eat and cook and having fun with it. Like, it's just, I feel like it's so easy to be in common with having food around. Like, you can share that commonality with other people.
It can be communal.
Exactly. So I'm a big fan of like going out to eat, learning recipe, and like kind of just talking about food. And
I
things
know.
like
I love it because when you post, I'm like, oh, now I'm hungry. Oh,
right.
Bebe, what was that restaurant?
Right.
Where was that dessert from?
Exactly.
Give me the recommendation.
Yeah. How about you, Marissa? Who are you off the clock?
Ooh, are we doing a little reverse co-host? Okay. Who am I off the clock? That's a good one. I love just being outdoors and exploring.
Ooh.
I love traveling. So actually, you know, this year has been heavy. It's been heavy traveling. And coming off of the pandemic, like, you know, being stuck in the house for 2 years. So in May, I did a Bali trip. I did a group trip. That was beautiful. I enjoy traveling. Even with the global autism, like I did that alone, but I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like you still learn. Like, this sounds like a really good experience.
It was awesome. Traveling alone, I think everybody should do. It's scary, but it also like shows you how you know how capable you are. In case anyone needs a reminder, you know, like it really kind of, it also humbles you, you know, getting lost in a train system or trying to navigate like in a language, you know, in a country in a language you don't know.
Exactly.
So I did Bali in May. I did Mexico in June and July.
Wow.
I love Mexico. Mexico is beautiful. I went to Oaxaca. I went to Holbox, a little island, like so beautiful. And then
pictures.
Yeah. And then the last one was Italy.
Wow, yeah.
So Italy, jealous. I went with a cousin, and it was just it was everything. The food, Bebe, the food.
Oh my god, I need to go there.
The food. I had gelato every day, just because I could.
I love gelato.
And just so fresh. So that's who I am off the clock, is, you know, an explorer. And it could even be, I mean, here in the Bay Area, we have like Santa Cruz, you know, less than an hour away. We have San Francisco on the other side, right? And so, I don't know, we also have like really beautiful, you know, scenic things to see around here as well. So, you know, just being outdoors.
Yeah, and I think we're, like, even with us, like, sometimes we're kind of like, oh, like, I was wondering how to put together, like, a Korean barbecue party or a hot party. Like, sometimes we kind of think about it, right?
Yeah, because we are a mix of so many cultures just in this little area, right? Silicon Valley. So, you know, it's so much fun to be like, I don't know what meat to order, Bebe. What meat should I order? And then I try it. I'm like, yes, that's my jam. That's right. You know? So now I feel like I could go to a hot pot and be like, I know exactly. No, I really can't. Or the drinks to get. You also got the plug on that, Bebe.
Exactly. I love that. Oh man, we're so much fun. Like, I feel like it's been fun, like, talking about the experience and actually hear it like out of our mouth. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm thinking it, but I don't hear it vocalized.
Yeah, and
I
just to
love this.
reflect.
Yeah.
You know, to
yeah.
reflect it. But that piece is the key piece, too. It's like, who are you outside of being a BCBA? You know, because sometimes we can let that engulf us. And when we talked about burnout earlier, too.
Exactly.
So easy because we get so dedicated. I think a vast majority of individuals in this field are also like, you know, people pleasers, whether that be by choice, by experience in their childhood, whatever it might be, right? It is, you're in a compassionate field in general, you know, so sometimes it is hard to say no or setting boundaries. So for me, a lifesaver in keeping that work-life balance has been learning to say no respectfully, and setting boundaries for myself, because as a young BCBA, I took my first company. I was there with them for 3 years, and I was just burnt out. But I didn't know it, you know? It's like I didn't know. So until you know what you're looking for, it's like I would go on vacation, come back, and I would still feel like, oh, that didn't help. So not to say that that's the indicator, but I think that's a key piece of setting boundaries and knowing how much of my time am I willing to dedicate to work, and how do I set those boundaries? You know, working out I do yoga.
Ooh.
Yoga with weights.
I love it.
So for me, it has been like creating a routine outside of work and respecting my time boundaries. I know before I used to work till 7 and just be like, yeah, I could work till 7. That's fine. And oftentimes that is a big key, especially for families with older kiddos, right, who go to school during the day. A vast majority have that afternoon, evening availability. So I was just used to working till 7 p.m. That was a norm, you know, and it was a learning experience when you also catch like RBTs or program managers or other BCBAs or other field providers that know how to set those boundaries. I was like, come on, you know, the family's not available till 6. Come on, you can do it. Or, you know, the family's, their best time for parent training is at 8 p.m. And sometimes that is okay. But, and you know, it's each their own, right? Like, actually, you could talk about your schedule, too, because that's a cool adjustment that works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I try my best to kind of, like, either mush all the time that I need to work kind of, like, closely together. And if, you know, like, if something that I'm incapable of doing, such as, like, traveling further down and things like that, right? Maybe that's a good time to kind of
your
mention,
work week?
Like into the work week, like, that's a good time to kind of mention for support. Like, hey, you know, like, maybe this case not the best for me, or, like, kind of knowing that I'm unable to provide that that support that they need, right? So then people who are able can come in and help and like support.
But tell us about your Saturdays. Your work schedule is different.
My work schedule is different
by choice.
Saturday. Yes. And I think I do that so that I can have like a weekday open.
So Tuesday through Saturday.
I do Tuesday through Saturday for my schedules. And I think that was helpful for me, like as a person who came from like a 7 to 4 schedule from a school setting. I came into a BCBA job and I was like, hey, listen, I think I would like a weekday off instead of an astral like weekend, because that's when I need to do all of my chores and all of the things that I need to do. It was tough for me, so I was like, okay, let me do that transition. And I think that's been helpful because I was able to kind of like do my chores and get myself organized and ready for the week. And I noticed myself being more preppy on like the beginning of the week, and I'm ready to go, and I'm like excited to be back to work every Tuesday, because like my Monday was like slow and chill and productive.
Oh, can we just talk about like setting a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment? I'm just like, oh, you know, you just gotta shift so many things around. So I'm Monday through Friday, so like, you know, shifting things around or finding like, oh, do you have this little block of time that I have open available is such a challenge. So I was like, man, we should talk to the, you know, dentists and doctors. Hey, can you accept appointments after 5?
Right. Oh man. But it was so much fun talking to you.
Yes. So before we wrap up, I just want to hear, what is your just overall message for RBTs or you know, just master's level students, of like, what would be your biggest takeaway message or something motivating quote or something to give them to look forward to?
Do you want to guess? I mean, I said it a couple of times. Don't stop learning.
Don't stop learning. That's your message. That's
my message.
That's it across the board. You know what? That covers a lot, though.
It does. It does. It's very generalized, but I feel like it's it's a reminder, like, to me, even to me. I don't think it's like, you know, something to like target to anyone, but it's more of like a reminder that, hey, even when you're working so hard for like to become a BCBA, and when you already are a BCBA, it's like you still have a lot to learn and intake of like the perspective of the world. So don't stop learning. Keep going with what you do.
Yes. Thank you. Let's thank Bebe for taking some time to spend with us today, and we hope to collab and have you on as a guest speaker in future episodes.
Yay!
And continue to create a community. This was awesome, Bebe. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Marissa, for hosting.
Yes. Alrighty. Signing off on our first official episode.
Woo!